The scream pierced through the bustling hardware store as a towering stack of oak flooring boxes tilted precariously above Katherine Kincaid's head. Time seemed to slow, her designer purse slipping from her fingers, eyes wide with terror as half a ton of hardwood threatened to crush her. In that frozen moment, a blur of movement caught her peripheral vision, a man lunging forward, muscular arms outstretched, his body positioning itself between her and certain disaster. "Get back," Vincent Vasquez shouted, his powerful shoulders bracing against the falling weight. His legs trembled with the strain, but somehow he managed to push the stack back into place, his breathing heavy as the last box settled securely on the pile. Katherine stood frozen, her heart hammering wildly in her chest. The man who had saved her turned, concern etched across his rugged features. He was tall with dark hair cut short, stubble lining a strong jaw, and eyes that reminded her of warm amber in sunlight. "Are you okay?" he asked, his voice deep and slightly breathless from exertion. Before she could answer, a small voice called out, "Dad, Dad, that was awesome." A little boy, no more than 7 years old, raced toward them, his sneakers lighting up with each enthusiastic step. Vincent caught his son by the shoulders. "Ethan, buddy, I told you to stay by the cart. But I saw you save that lady. You're like a superhero." The boy's eyes were wide with admiration. Katherine finally found her voice. "He certainly is." She smoothed down her simple blouse, deliberately chosen this morning to blend in during her incognito shopping trip. "Thank you. I don't even want to think about what would have happened if you hadn't been here." Vincent's cheeks colored slightly as he shrugged. "Anyone would have done the same." A store employee rushed over, apologizing profusely. "Madam, sir, I'm so sorry about that. Those boxes weren't stacked properly." "Are you both all right?" "We're fine," Vincent answered, then glanced at Katherine. "Right," she nodded, still shaken but managing a smile. "Yes, thanks to this gentleman." The employee promised to report the incident to management and hurried away to secure the display. Katherine bent to retrieve her purse, and Vincent stooped at the same moment to help her. Their hands brushed, sending an unexpected current through her fingers. "I'm Katherine," she said, surprising herself with the introduction. Usually she was guarded with strangers, a necessary caution when your net worth had 9 zeros attached to it. "Vincent Vasquez," he replied with a warm smile. "And this little tornado is my son, Ethan. Nice to meet you both, despite the circumstances." She glanced at the shopping list in Vincent's hand, noticing the careful calculations in the margins. "Are you renovating?" Vincent ran a hand through his hair, looking slightly embarrassed. "Just some repairs at our apartment. The bathroom sink's been leaking and the landlord isn't exactly rushing to fix it." "Dad can fix anything," Ethan declared proudly. "He works on buildings all day and then he comes home and fixes our stuff too." Katherine raised an eyebrow. "You're in construction." "Site foreman," Vincent confirmed. "Though these days I'm picking up extra handyman jobs on weekends." He hesitated, then added with a self-deprecating smile, "Single dad life isn't cheap." She nodded, understanding more than he realized. Though she'd inherited Kincaid technologies from her father, she'd spent years in the trenches, learning every aspect of the business. Hard work was something she respected deeply. "What about you?" Vincent asked. "What brings you to the plumbing aisle on a Saturday morning?" Katherine hesitated, instinctively defaulting to vagueness. "Oh, just picking up a few things for my place." She didn't mention that her place was a 10,000 square foot penthouse overlooking Central Park, or that she had a maintenance staff on call 24/7. For once, it felt good to just be Katherine, not Katherine Kincaid, CEO of a tech empire. "Dad, can we still get ice cream after?" Ethan tugged at his father's worn jeans, bringing their conversation back to earth. Vincent checked his watch and winced. "We'll see, buddy. We still need to finish getting these supplies and get to Mrs. Martinez's place by noon." He looked apologetically at Katherine. "She's an elderly neighbor. Her faucet's been dripping for weeks." "You're fixing her plumbing too?" Katherine asked. "Free of charge," Vincent confirmed. "She watches Ethan sometimes when my shifts run late, so it's the least I can do." Something warm unfurled in Katherine's chest. In her world of corporate sharks and opportunists, Vincent's simple kindness felt refreshingly genuine. Well, I shouldn't keep you, she said, though strangely reluctant to end their encounter. Thank you again for saving me from a concussion or worse. Vincent smiled and Katherine noticed the slight crinkle around his eyes. Anytime, though maybe avoid precarious stacks of flooring in the future. She laughed. I'll add that to my list of life rules. As they parted ways, Katherine found herself glancing back at Vincent and Ethan, watching as the father hoisted his son onto his shoulders near the checkout. She couldn't remember the last time she'd met someone who wasn't trying to impress her or get something from her. The authenticity was intriguing. On impulse, she approached the store manager and quietly arranged to pay for Vincent's purchases, requesting anonymity. It was a small gesture compared to his heroism, but it felt right. Vincent was bewildered when the cashier informed him his items had been paid for by an anonymous benefactor. He scanned the store, catching Katherine's eye just as she was slipping out the door. She gave a small wave and disappeared, leaving him with a puzzled smile and a curious warmth in his chest. Katherine's driver was waiting outside in the discreet sedan she preferred for her anonymous outings. As she settled into the leather seat, her phone buzzed with messages from her executive team crisis at the London office, stock fluctuations, acquisition paperwork needing review. Reality came rushing back. Yet as the car pulled away, her thoughts remained with the selfless single father who'd risked injury to save a stranger, never knowing he'd just rescued one of the wealthiest women in the country. 3 days later, Vincent was finishing up at the construction site, his muscles aching from hauling steel beams all day. Rain had been threatening since morning, and now fat droplets began to fall as he collected his tools. You heading straight home, Vince? His coworker Marco called out. Yeah, gotta pick up Ethan from after-school care, Vincent replied, checking his watch. He was cutting it close again. The program charged extra for late pickups, and those dollars added up quickly on his tight budget. He jogged to his truck, an old Ford that protested with a wheeze before reluctantly starting. The windshield wipers squeaked as they battled the intensifying downpour. Traffic crawled through Manhattan's congested streets, each red light increasing his anxiety. When he finally reached the community center, he was 15 minutes late. He found Ethan sitting alone with the program coordinator, drawing intently. I'm so sorry, Vincent apologized, both to the coordinator and his son. Traffic was a nightmare. It's okay, Mr. Vasquez, the coordinator assured him. Ethan's been great, though there is the late fee. Vincent nodded, reaching for his wallet. $25 he couldn't really spare, but rules were rules. Dad, look what I drew. Ethan held up his artwork, momentarily distracting Vincent from his financial worries. The paper showed a stick figure holding up what appeared to be a large rectangle over another stick figure. It's you saving that pretty lady at the store, Vincent smiled, ruffling his son's hair. That's really good, buddy. As they stepped outside, the rain had stopped, leaving puddles reflecting the late afternoon sun. Vincent was calculating how to stretch his remaining grocery budget when Ethan suddenly stopped walking. Dad, look, it's her. Vincent followed his son's pointing finger and felt his heart skip. Standing beside a sleek car across the street was Katherine, the woman from the hardware store. She seemed to be having an intense phone conversation, gesturing emphatically with her free hand. Should we say hi? Ethan asked, already tugging Vincent toward the crosswalk. I don't think we should bother her, buddy. She looks busy. But Ethan had already broken free, darting across the street during a break in traffic. Ethan, Vincent called out, hurrying after him. Katherine looked up at the sound of the boy's approach, her serious expression melting into surprise and then a warm smile. She quickly ended her call. Well, hello there, she greeted Ethan. You're the superhero's son, right? Ethan beamed. Yep, and look, he's right here. Vincent caught up, slightly out of breath and embarrassed. I'm sorry about this. Ethan, you can't just run up to people like that. Katherine waved away his concern. It's perfectly fine. It's good to see you both again. What are you doing here? Ethan asked with a child's directness. I was actually meeting with the director of this community center, Katherine explained. We're discussing some improvements to their programs. Vincent noticed she seemed carefully vague, but before he could ponder it further, Ethan jumped in again. We come here every day after school because Dad has to work. I wish he didn't have to work so much, but he says that's how we get money for important stuff like rent and Lucky Charms. Ethan, Vincent gently admonished, feeling heat rise in his cheeks. Katherine laughed, the sound musical and genuine. Lucky Charms are definitely essential. She glanced at Vincent, something unreadable in her expression. Would you two like to grab some coffee or hot chocolate for this young man? There's a nice cafe around the corner. Vincent hesitated. Katherine was undeniably attractive, and there was something about her that intrigued him, but he was also acutely aware of their differences. Even in casual clothes, everything about her screamed expensive, from her perfectly styled hair to her subtle designer watch. "Please, Dad," Ethan pleaded. "I'm really hungry," Katherine added, "my treat. Consider it a belated thank you for saving me from being flattened by flooring." "You already paid for our supplies," Vincent pointed out. She tilted her head, a small smile playing on her lips. "So you figured that out." There weren't many candidates for mysterious benefactors in the store that day. "Then let me buy you coffee to thank you for not calling me out on the spot." Vincent found himself returning her smile. "When you put it that way, how can I refuse?" The cafe was cozy and not as upscale as Vincent had feared. Ethan happily devoured a chocolate muffin while Vincent and Katherine settled into conversation that flowed more easily than either expected. "So," Katherine stirred her latte, "how long have you been in construction?" "Almost 10 years now," Vincent replied. "Started as a laborer right out of high school, worked my way up to foreman last year." "That's impressive," he shrugged. "It's honest work, pays the bills, mostly." He glanced at Ethan, lowering his voice. "His mom left when he was 2. The child support checks are inconsistent." Katherine's expression softened. "You're doing an amazing job with him. That's obvious from spending 5 minutes with you two." "Some days are better than others," Vincent admitted. "What about you? What do you do?" Katherine paused, and Vincent noticed a slight tension in her shoulders. "I work in technology, business development." "Sounds fancy." "It has its moments," she said with a mysterious smile. "But honestly, most days it's just meetings and more meetings." As they talked, Vincent found himself increasingly drawn to Katherine. Beyond her obvious beauty, there was a sharpness to her mind and a warmth to her laugh that captivated him. She listened intently when he spoke, asked thoughtful questions about his work and Ethan, and seemed genuinely interested in his answers. When Ethan excused himself to examine the cafe's fish tank, Katherine leaned forward. "Vincent, I hope this isn't too forward, but would you and Ethan like to join me for dinner sometime this week? Maybe at that new Italian place in the village?" Vincent's stomach nodded. "That's really nice of you, but I'm pretty sure that place is way out of my budget." "I invited you, so it would be my treat," she said simply. Pride warred with attraction in Vincent's chest. "I don't usually let women I barely know pay for expensive meals." Katherine studied him for a moment. "What if we compromise? You could cook dinner at your place, I'll bring dessert." The suggestion surprised him. Most women he'd briefly dated since becoming a single father had preferred to keep his domestic situation at arm's length. "You'd want to come to our apartment. It's not exactly fancy." "I don't need fancy," she said quietly. "I'd just like to spend more time with you both." Against his better judgment, Vincent found himself agreeing. They exchanged numbers, and Katherine insisted on dropping them at their apartment since it had started raining again. As her car pulled up to his modest building in Queens, Vincent felt a twinge of embarrassment. This was a world away from wherever Katherine lived, but when he glanced at her, there was no judgment in her eyes, only warmth. "Friday at 7, she confirmed. "Friday at 7, he echoed, trying to ignore the way his heart raced when she smiled. After they said goodbye, Ethan looked up at his father with curious eyes. "Dad, do you like her? Like her?" Vincent laughed, guiding his son up the stairs to their third-floor walk-up. "She seems nice, doesn't she?" "Yeah," Ethan agreed, "and she smells like cookies. Good cookies." Vincent couldn't help but laugh again. Leave it to a 7-year-old to notice the important things. Over the next few days, Katherine found herself distracted during board meetings, her thoughts drifting to Vincent's warm smile and Ethan's exuberance. When her executive assistant, Deanne, caught her doodling during a conference call, She knew she had it bad. "Miss Kincaid, the Tokyo team is waiting for your input on the merger proposal," Deanne reminded her gently. "Right, sorry." Katherine refocused, trying to push thoughts of Friday's dinner from her mind. Later, alone in her office overlooking the Manhattan skyline, Deanne brought in her afternoon coffee and lingered by the desk. "Is everything all right? You seem distracted lately," Katherine sighed. She and Deanne had worked together for 8 years, and the woman knew her better than most. "I met someone." Deanne's eyebrows shot up. "That's wonderful. Who is he?" "Another CEO, that handsome venture capitalist from the Phoenix conference." "He's a construction foreman," Katherine said, unable to keep the smile from her face, "and he has a 7-year-old son." Deanne's surprise was evident, but to her credit, she recovered quickly. "How did you meet?" "He saved me from being crushed by falling merchandise at a hardware store." Katherine laughed at the absurdity of it. "And the thing is, Deanne, he has no idea who I am. To him, I'm just Katherine who works in technology." Understanding dawned on Deanne's face. "And you like that, being just Katherine?" "I do," she admitted. "It's refreshing, no agenda, no pretense." "But you'll have to tell him eventually," Deanne pointed out gently. Katherine nodded, a knot forming in her stomach. Her wealth and position had complicated every relationship she'd ever had. Men either became intimidated or saw her as a trophy to be won, neither made for a healthy foundation. "I know, just not yet." Friday evening arrived with a mixture of anticipation and anxiety for both Katherine and Vincent. She spent an hour deciding what to wear, eventually settling on jeans and a simple blouse, casual but nice, and hopefully not screaming "Billionaire CEO." Vincent, meanwhile, spent the afternoon frantically cleaning the apartment, aware of every scuff on the wall and crack in the ceiling. Ethan helped by organizing his toys into slightly neater piles. "Is the apartment too messy?" Vincent asked his son for the 3rd time as he stirred the sauce for his grandmother's lasagna recipe. "It looks fine, Dad," Ethan assured him, setting out the mismatched plates they'd collected over the years. "Besides, she's coming to see us, not the apartment." Vincent smiled at his son's wisdom. "When did you get so smart?" "I've always been smart," Ethan declared solemnly. "Miss Peterson says I'm precocious." The doorbell rang precisely at 7. Vincent wiped his hands on a dish towel, took a deep breath, and opened the door. Katherine stood in the hallway, a smile lighting up her face and a bakery box in her hands. "Hi," she said simply. "Hi," Vincent replied, suddenly feeling like a teenager again. "Come in." Katherine entered their home, taking in the small but tidy living room with its worn furniture and walls covered in Ethan's artwork. "Something smells amazing," she commented. "Dad's making his special lasagna," Ethan announced, appearing at her side. "It's the best in the whole universe." "Then I can't wait to try it," Katherine said, bending down to his level. "I brought cannoli for dessert. I hope that's okay." "What's cannoli?" Ethan asked. "Only the most delicious Italian dessert ever created," she explained. "Crispy shells filled with sweet cream and chocolate chips." Ethan's eyes widened. "That sounds even better than Lucky Charms." Dinner was a relaxed affair, filled with easy conversation and Ethan's animated stories about school. Vincent watched in amazement as Katherine engaged fully with his son, never once talking down to him or showing the impatience some adults did with children's rambling tales. After dinner, Ethan convinced them to play a board game, and Vincent couldn't remember the last time he'd laughed so much. As the evening grew late, Ethan's eyelids began to droop. "Bedtime, buddy," Vincent announced. "But I'm not tired," Ethan protested through a yawn. "Would you like me to read you a story?" Katherine offered, surprising both Vasquez men. Ethan immediately perked up. "Yes, please." Vincent led them to Ethan's small bedroom, watching from the doorway as Katherine settled beside his son on the narrow bed. She read with different voices for each character, completely invested in the story, and Vincent felt something shift in his chest, a growing warmth that both excited and terrified him. When Ethan finally drifted off, Katherine carefully extracted herself and joined Vincent in the living room. "Thank you for that," he said softly, handing her a glass of the modestly priced wine he'd splurged on for the evening. "He's wonderful," she replied, accepting the glass. You're doing an amazing job with him, Vincent. They settled on the couch, closer than strictly necessary, the night stretching comfortably around them. Can I ask you something? Vincent ventured after a comfortable silence. Of course. Why are you here? I mean, you're clearly, he gestured vaguely, out of my league. You could be having dinner anywhere with anyone. Katherine considered her answer carefully. Maybe I'm exactly where I want to be, she said finally, meeting his gaze. With exactly who I want to be with. The air between them changed, charged with possibility. Vincent set down his wine glass and slowly leaned toward her. Katherine met him halfway, their lips connecting in a kiss that started gentle but quickly deepened with mutual hunger. When they finally broke apart, both slightly breathless, Vincent rested his forehead against hers. I should probably tell you I haven't dated much since Ethan's mother left. I'm a little out of practice. Katherine smiled, her fingers tracing the line of his jaw. You seem to be doing just fine. They spent the next few hours talking, kissing, and discovering each other. Katherine carefully steered conversations away from specific details about her work, and Vincent was too captivated by her presence to notice the omissions. When she finally left, promising to see him again soon, Vincent closed the door behind her and leaned against it, a goofy smile spreading across his face. For the first time in years, he felt the stirring of real possibility. What Vincent didn't see was Katherine pausing on the sidewalk, glancing back at his building with a mixture of joy and apprehension. Her driver waited discreetly in the car, a reminder of the truth she was withholding. Over the next few weeks, Katherine and Vincent fell into a rhythm. She joined them for movie nights and weekend outings to the park. Vincent cooked for her, and she brought little surprises for Ethan books he'd mentioned wanting to read. A model rocket kit they spent an entire Sunday assembling. To maintain her cover, Katherine sometimes had to cancel plans last minute, citing work emergencies. Vincent never questioned it, though she could see the disappointment in his eyes. The guilt gnawed at her, but each time she considered telling him the truth, fear held her back. What they had felt real in a way nothing in her life had for a long time. One evening, after putting Ethan to bed following a day at the zoo, Vincent and Katherine cuddled on his couch, a documentary playing softly in the background. I think I'm falling in love with you, Vincent said suddenly, his voice quiet but certain. Katherine's heart soared, even as anxiety tightened her chest. I think I'm falling in love with you too, she admitted. He kissed her then, deep and passionate, and for a while the complications fell away. But as they held each other, Katherine knew she couldn't continue the charade much longer. He deserved the truth, whatever the consequences. The decision was taken out of her hands the very next day. Vincent was at work, overseeing the final stages of a commercial building renovation, when one of his workers called him over. Hey, Vince, isn't this your girlfriend? Vincent approached, confused, until he saw the newspaper the man was holding. There on the business page was a photo of Katherine in an elegant suit, standing at a podium. The headline read, Kincaid Technologies CEO announces revolutionary new medical device. The world seemed to tilt beneath Vincent's feet as he read the caption. Katherine Kincaid, 33, billionaire CEO of Kincaid Technologies, unveils groundbreaking technology that could transform cancer treatment. That can't be her, Vincent said, even as recognition dawned. The carefully vague answers about her work, the sudden cancellations, the way she sometimes tensed when money came up in conversation, it all made terrible sense now. He borrowed the paper and read the article in its entirety, learning that Katherine Kincaid had inherited the tech empire from her father 7 years ago and had since tripled its value. Her estimated net worth was $11 billion. Vincent felt sick. Not because of her wealth, he wasn't that petty, but because of the deception. All this time, she'd been hiding such a fundamental part of herself. What else had she concealed? Was any of it real? When his phone buzzed with a text from Katherine asking if they were still on for dinner that night, he didn't respond. He needed time to process, to figure out what to do next. Katherine sensed something was wrong when Vincent didn't answer her messages. By evening, worry had overtaken her. This wasn't like him. She decided to go to his apartment, hoping everything was all right. When he opened the door, his expression confirmed her fears. He looked tired, hurt, and distant. "Vincent, what's wrong?" she asked, though part of her already knew. Wordlessly, he held up the newspaper. Catherine's stomach dropped. "I can explain," she began, but Vincent cut her off. "Explain what? That you've been lying to me for weeks. That you pretended to be someone you're not." "I never pretended," Catherine insisted, her voice cracking. "Everything between us has been real. I just didn't tell you everything about my life. Didn't tell me everything." Vincent ran a hand through his hair in frustration. "Catherine, you're one of the richest people in the country. That's not a small detail you forgot to mention." "I was going to tell you," she said, tears threatening. "I just wanted you to know me first, the real me, not the headlines or the bank account. How could I possibly know the real you when you were hiding such a huge part of your life?" His words stung because there was truth in them. Catherine had justified her omission as protection, but in reality, it had been about fear that Vincent would treat her differently, that what they were building would change. "Dad." Ethan's small voice interrupted them. He stood in the hallway in his pajamas, looking confused and worried. "Why are you yelling at Catherine?" Vincent immediately softened his tone. "It's okay, buddy. We're just having a grown-up discussion. Go back to bed and I'll come tuck you in again in a minute." "Are you mad at her?" Ethan persisted. Vincent sighed. "It's complicated, Ethan." The boy looked at Catherine, his expression serious. "Did you do something bad?" Catherine knelt to his level, her heart breaking. "I kept a secret from your dad, and that wasn't right. I should have been honest from the beginning." Ethan considered this. "Like when I broke the lamp but said it was the wind." Despite everything, both adults smiled at the comparison. "Something like that," Catherine agreed. "But you said sorry, and Dad forgave me after I was grounded for a day," Ethan reasoned. "So if you say sorry, maybe Dad will forgive you too." The simplicity of a child's logic hung in the air between them. Vincent guided Ethan back to bed, promising they would talk more in the morning. When he returned to the living room, Catherine was still there, tears now flowing freely down her cheeks. "I am sorry," she said quietly. "So sorry. I never meant to hurt you. For the first time in my adult life, someone was seeing me, just me, not my money or my company or my family name. It felt incredible." Vincent's anger hadn't disappeared, but it had softened. "I understand why you did it," he admitted. "But relationships need trust, Catherine. How can I trust you now? Give me a chance to earn that trust back," she pleaded. "I love you, Vincent, and I love Ethan. The woman who's been with you these past weeks, that's the real me. The rest is just circumstance." Vincent was silent for a long moment. "I need time to think," he finally said. "This is a lot to process." Catherine nodded, understanding but heartbroken. "I'll go, but Vincent, please know nothing about how I feel about you was ever a lie." As she left, Vincent felt the apartment grow emptier than it had ever been. The following days were miserable for both of them. Catherine threw herself into work, spending long hours at the office to avoid her empty penthouse that now felt cold and sterile compared to Vincent's warm, lived-in apartment. Vincent struggled to explain to Ethan why Catherine wasn't coming over anymore. The boy's innocent questions, "Is she still our friend? Does she not like us now?" only amplified his confusion. A week after their confrontation, Vincent was picking Ethan up from school when he noticed a familiar car parked across the street. Catherine stood beside it, uncertainty written across her face. She didn't approach, clearly waiting for some sign that he was open to conversation. Ethan spotted her immediately. "Catherine," he called out, waving enthusiastically. Before Vincent could stop him, Ethan was running toward her. Catherine knelt to receive his hug, her eyes meeting Vincent's over the boy's shoulder. The longing and regret he saw there matched his own feelings. Slowly, Vincent crossed the street. "Hi," he said simply. "Hi," she replied, straightening up but keeping a hand on Ethan's shoulder. "I'm sorry to ambush you like this. I missed you both so much." "We missed you too," Ethan declared before Vincent could respond. "Dad's been really sad. He sighs a lot and keeps looking at his phone." Catherine's gaze flickered to Vincent, hope kindling in her eyes. "Does he?" Vincent felt a blush creep up his neck. "Thanks for the commentary, buddy. Can Catherine come over?" Ethan asked, looking between the adults. "Please, Dad. She can help me with my science project about rockets." Vincent hesitated, then nodded. "If she wants to." "I want to," Catherine said quickly. "More than anything." The walk to their apartment was quiet, Ethan's chatter filling the space between them. Once inside, the boy immediately dragged Katherine to see his half-constructed project, giving the adults a moment of privacy. "I've been doing a lot of thinking," Vincent said, his voice low. "So have I," Katherine replied. "Vincent, let me finish," he interrupted gently. "What hurt most wasn't finding out about your wealth. It was realizing you didn't trust me enough to tell me yourself." Katherine nodded, accepting the criticism. "You're right. I was scared of losing what we had, scared you'd see me differently, but that's no excuse for not being honest." "No, it's not," Vincent agreed, "but I've also realized something else this week. I miss you. Not Katherine Kincaid, CEO, but just you, the woman who reads stories to my son and laughs at my terrible jokes and makes me feel like I can do anything." Hope bloomed in Katherine's chest. "That's who I really am. The rest is just circumstances I was born into." "I know that now," Vincent said, "and I'm willing to try again if you are, but this time with complete honesty." Katherine's smile was radiant through her tears. "Complete honesty," she promised. "Starting now." She took a deep breath. "I love you, Vincent Vasquez, and I love your son. And if you'll have me, I want to be part of your lives not as a billionaire or a CEO, but as someone who cares about you both more than I thought possible." Vincent closed the distance between them, cupping her face in his hands. "I love you too, and we'll figure out the rest as we go." Their kiss was a promise, a new beginning founded on truth. From the bedroom doorway, Ethan watched with a satisfied smile. "Does this mean Katherine can stay for dinner?" he called out. The adults broke apart, laughing. "Yes," Vincent confirmed. "I think Katherine will be staying for dinner. And maybe for a very long time after that." 1 year later, Katherine stood in the garden of her Hamptons estate, now their weekend home, watching as Vincent chased Ethan through the sprinklers. Their laughter carried on the summer breeze, filling her heart with contentment. The transition hadn't been seamless. There had been adjustments on all sides, Vincent coming to terms with dating one of the wealthiest women in America. Katherine learning to share decision-making after years of autonomy. Both of them navigating the media attention their relationship eventually attracted. But the foundation they'd rebuilt, based on honesty and genuine connection, had proven strong enough to weather every challenge. "You look happy," said a voice beside her. Deanne, now a friend as well as an assistant, had joined them for the weekend. "I am," Katherine confirmed, twisting the simple engagement ring on her finger. Vincent had insisted on buying it himself, though she'd assured him it didn't matter. That was who he was: proud, independent, and unfailingly thoughtful. "Dad, Katherine, come on." Ethan called, now 9 and as energetic as ever. "The water's perfect," Katherine kicked off her sandals without hesitation. Some of her board members might have been shocked to see their polished CEO sprinting through sprinklers in shorts and a t-shirt, shrieking with laughter as Vincent caught her around the waist and spun her through the water. But this was who she really was, who she'd always been beneath the business suits and boardroom demeanor. It had taken a falling box, a heroic save, and the love of a good man and his son to remind her of that simple truth. Later, as they sat on the porch watching the sunset, Ethan dozed against Vincent's side, worn out from the day's adventures. "Any regrets?" Katherine asked softly, her head resting on Vincent's shoulder. He considered the question, looking at his sleeping son, then at the remarkable woman beside him. "Just one," he said finally. Katherine raised an eyebrow, curious. "I sometimes wish that box had fallen a little sooner," Vincent explained with a smile. "Think of all the time we could have had together." Katherine laughed quietly. "We have plenty of time ahead of us," she reminded him, taking his hand in hers. "A lifetime." "A lifetime," Vincent echoed, kissing her softly as the last rays of sunlight painted the sky in gold, much like that first moment in the hardware store when a chance encounter had changed everything. Sometimes the heaviest things that fall turn out to be blessings in disguise.